We've been talking about family culture, and that means today I wanted to talk about this aspect of family culture, which for Greg and I was something we did. I mean, we did before we had children. I remember doing it.
I was doing this before I met you.
Yes, you were. It's true. So, and it's essentially this idea, as we see here, of beginning with the end in mind. And we're going to dive into what that means, what that looks like, how we actually do it. But it makes a huge difference. In fact, I think it's made all the difference for our family culture when we sat down and went through this process of imagining what we wanted our family to be like. I would say where we are now, but even into the future, like even beyond where we are now. We envisioned all of that. We went through the process of thinking through what it was we wanted our family vision and mission to look like, what we wanted our family to feel like, what we wanted our family to be about. We went through that entire process, and that's made a huge difference in creating what we have now. I mean, essentially, I would say that is the defining piece, or at least one of them.
Because it's with that vision, it guides all other decisions. It's so powerful. Because the greatest concern, you guys, is that we put all this work and effort and go down this road for years and years and years and get down there and go, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong path. I've been doing all this work to get over here, but I wanted to be over there. And sadly, that is probably one of the most common things that I hear and see with families that are going down the road. They get down a ways and they're like, this isn't what we wanted. And I'm like, yeah, but that's where you were going.
Right. Well, I think the other thing too, because I know I've told this story before, many people just think it will happen by default. Like one of the saddest things I ever heard was my grandmother on her deathbed said to my mom, I always just thought if I was a good person that my children would turn out okay or great. And I think that too many people take that approach. They're just like, I'll just go through life, I'll just be a good person, and everything will work out. And that's just not true. Like you have to have a plan. You have to have a vision. You have to have a mission. Like you have to be working on something. And I think that is illustrated best in a lot of different ways. Like this. So a lot of this stuff I'm talking about today comes from a book that I read early on. You read, what's it called again?
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah. So Greg and I both read that multiple times. And then I also read 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families, which I guess you didn't read that one, but anyways, same idea. So this is coming from 7 Habits from Highly Effective Families. But he emphasizes, and we love to emphasize all the time, that everything you want to build has to be built twice. First, it's created mentally, and then it's created physically. But we don't often realize that that applies to our family too. You know, it's easy for us to think about it when it's house. If you're going to build a house, every single house, well, okay, not every single one, because we've lived in lots of countries and some of them did not have plans, I'm sure. Well-built houses, let's say that, always have to be created mentally first before they can be created physically. Greg's stepdad, current stepdad, is a general contractor? I guess that's what he is. And he builds luxury houses, like huge, gorgeous luxury houses.
10 to $20 million.
Yeah. And they have pages and pages, like an entire stack of blueprints, right? So, you know, but the crazy thing is when we think about that, we're like, yeah, oh, obviously, that's what you do. You know, they know where every light switch is going, where every outlet is going, where every single wire is going, where like everything. They know where everything's going. And that makes complete sense to us. But when we think about our families, we're just like, oh, well,
it'll work out.
We'll see. It'll work out. Yeah. You know, we'll figure it out as we go. But if you built a house that way, we've seen what they look like. They are not as great as the ones you plan well in advance, right? So
Again, it's like a couple different metaphors. You put your ladder against the wall, you put all the effort to climb up the ladder, only you get up there and be like, I put it up against the wrong wall. Or another idea is barking up the wrong tree. You go and you're like, this is where I'm going. I'm climbing this peak or whatever, just all these different metaphors, and you end up the wrong one. So long before you put in all the effort to get somewhere, you got to make sure that you'll end up where you want to be. So that's the point of planning this all out, especially with family culture and family legacy.
right. And I think even, well, along with that idea is a lot of us, okay, we are where we are with our family right now. And we're wondering, why are things this way? Why do we always do this? And we've been emphasizing it this month. It's because of family culture. Like that is contributing. That is the cause, right? And so kind of part of the vision today is, how do I get to the root of these problems? Like what is causing or contributing all of the things I don't like about our family culture, right? That's what we want to talk about. That's what we want to address. That's what we want to heal or resolve or change by doing what we're talking about today, which is creating a family vision or mission statement.
I want to pause here for a second and really emphasize this before we get started. A lot of the things that happen in our family life that we don't like are just like weeds happening in the garden. They just
right.
come with the gardening. You're like, I didn't plant any weeds. Like why is this happening? Why are there weeds everywhere? It's like that's just part of life. So you're trying to grow this beautiful yard and garden, and there's weeds all over the place. That's just normal. This comes with being alive and having a family. The other part is that I would say there's three parts. So the second part then is maybe it's just unconscious or conscious neglect. So we don't take care of something, and so then we start having problems, right? You're like, well, it was a little bit of neglect here. I missed that, or we're inconsistent. We do it a little bit here, and then we don't do it, and then we do it a little bit, and so some little subtle form of negligence creates problems, right? That's just normal.
Which is just the same with weeds. I mean, it's the same idea. If we're not intentionally and deliberately pulling out the weeds, planning what to do with that space, doing something with that space, well, then by default, we're just getting weeds.
Well, and so then if we don't plant new things, if we don't water and care for them and fertilize them, it's just not going to work. The same is true with like a vehicle or something. If I don't regularly maintain it and change the oil and check the tires and put fuel in it, you're like, this piece of crap doesn't work. You're like, well, you didn't put any fuel in it. Like, oh, well, that's the easy fix. So that's the second part. So one is just natural. It just happens. Two, it's from neglect. Three, this one's a tricky one, and it's hard to swallow, and it's hard to hear sometimes. It's called collusion. It's where we inadvertently create our own problems. So we're doing things, usually unconsciously or subconsciously, that actually create the problem we don't want. And I see it all the time. Because we've been working in it for so long and I've been so observant about it and studied for so long, I watch other family dynamics. I watch them interact. I'm like, oh, there it is right there. They're creating their own problem, but they aren't even aware that they're doing it. And I get to see it every single week. And I saw some more recently. You just observe the interactions like, oh, there it is. That's what's causing the problem. That's what's causing the resistance or the rebellion or the gap, the distance, the animosity, the enmity, the bad attitude. It was right there. And it's like the parent doesn't even realize that they are actively participating in creating the problem. So anyways, those three things are important to remember as we're moving forward.
So, but specifically, I think if we could look at all those things that you're talking about, they generally fall into three different categories, right? As far as the root of the problem, like what is contributing to creating the family culture you don't want or damaging the family culture you want to have. And so the main categories, lack of identity, lack of connectedness, and then a lack of hope.